One of the things we wanted to talk about was the absence of Gaelic football so far from our screens, basically this year so far, Dave. This is, I know, is a
like again, our viewers and listeners might, want to take me up on this, but on the face of it, the first 6 weeks of the football championship, certainly the first 4 weeks, I mean, I can't ever recall a better start to the football championship than we've had. Certainly in the modern era, the qualifier era, where the merit and the worth of maintaining and retaining the provincial championships is constantly under scrutiny. And yeah, there have been years where the provincial championships across all 4 provinces have just kind of petered out and everyone's won the team that we expected to win them. But this season we've had so many stories, and even I was just thinking about it yesterday, well, maybe we haven't had a big story in Munster, but at the same time I thought Tip would turn Cork over in Thurles, and I thought we'd have a really interesting Munster final matchup. And then Cork go up and put on a bit of a masterclass. They win a game that a lot of people expected they might slip up in. And they're up against a Kerry team that I expected to be asked a few questions by Clare, and then they go out with these 7 debutants, the most they've had since they won the All-Ireland in '75, and kicked 32 points, which is an astonishing return, and no goals in the game. So even in Munster, I think there's a story. Galway-Roscommon's a brilliant match-up in the Connacht final, I think. There was plenty of stories from the Galway-Mayo game. Even the Leitrim-New York game gave us plenty of stories. Ulster has been amazing. The 2 wins Fermanagh have had, no one expected. The quality of the football in the Monaghan-Tyrone game was really interesting. I think Donegal have looked good. And then the biggest of them all is what's gone in Leinster. You've got 2 Division 4 teams contesting a semi-final, and all the history that goes with Carlow and Laois. Carlow back to 44, and Laois with, one title in the last 50 years. And Longford in a provincial semi-final. Like, it's just incredible. It's been really, really interesting. And there have been 2 games live on television. The Galway-Mayo game and the Fermanagh Monaghan game. The best of the lot wasn't shown at all. I watched it deferred on BBC that evening, the Monaghan-Tyrone game, and I know there are only so many TV slots, but I don't think Saturday night has been utilised enough. Last Saturday night was the first time we really got stuck into a Saturday evening game. And when I sit down to watch a Sunday game then, and this irks me even more, having watched hurling all day, I want to see proper detailed analysis and highlights of what's happened in the football that day, and they lead with the 2 hurling games.
Which they've already shown.
Which they've already shown, live and in full, with full analysis. I don't really understand that. I want to see more football. Now, traditionally, I would be a football man rather than a hurling man. I have absolutely adored every second of the hurling championship. I've been to three consecutive weeks of Munster Championship hurling, and I'm all over it. It's a phenomenal watch, and each game has been incredible. But I want to see more football, at least in highlights packages. I want to see a magazine show on a Wednesday night, whether that's on TV3 or Air Sport or TG Cahir, where they can delve in more detail into the stuff that maybe wasn't shown at the weekend. But there seems to be a complete lack of drive on the GA's behalf to put something like that in place. They could easily demand it of these TV stations when they're selling the rights. They could do it themselves. Why aren't they streaming games themselves?
I think they're going to, though. That's this is like one of those bridge years where you create demand and you make everybody go, we need more games, we need more games on TV, and then the solution magically appears. This is like first year of the massive amount of games, and already everyone's like, oh, we need more games on TV, whereas previously it was like, well, you can't be showing games on Sky, that's ridiculous. Now it's like, maybe we should utilise the fact that Sky have loads of room for games, or Air Sport or TG Cahir. Like, suddenly they have this massive amount of pent-up demand, and somebody will rush in and fill that, I think.
So you think it's a grand master plan, that the GA are sitting on their hands while they watch the demand for additional games, additional highlights, build over a 12-month period, as opposed to them signing a 5-year contract with Sky and RTÉ Television, and then 12 months later completely restructuring both championships in both codes, which then bore no resemblance and no alignment to the way that the TV contracts were signed. And then going, you know, we've been very happy with how it's worked up until now, which is exactly what they said. We're just going to leave it as it is. So you don't think it was a case of them making up as they go along. You think it was a case of them thinking, well, let's just give it a year, and then we'll have all the cards in a year's time, because people will be desperate for more games. Then we can go back to the negotiating table with Sky and RTÉ and sign a better deal.
Yeah, I don't think it was part of a master plan. I don't know if it was I don't think they expected to get the reaction it's probably got, the pickup it's got already this year. For me, looking at it, it seems like they were content to say May and early June is going to be hurling. This is our kind of hurling time of the year, and I think this will flip then. I think you'll see when you get to July, it's going to be so heavily focused on football. You'll probably then have hurling people saying, look, there's barely any hurling coverage, we only have a couple of games left of the year. So it's probably the nature of the schedule and the way it's gone. And I'd imagine it'll probably tend towards they'll end up showing more games, I think, on their own platforms, or I'd imagine that's where it's going to go. I don't know if it'll come from through the TV companies. I definitely think that the midweek show, or people talk in the past about the Monday Night Football with Neville and Carragher in terms of the Premier League. How something like that isn't in place is crazy. It's beyond me, because even doing it on a Sunday night, like you said this weekend, right, there's what did you say, 15 games, so you've a 2.5 hour slot on Sunday night to fill that with 15 games. There's no possible way you can do that justice in terms of showing enough coverage, showing match reaction, showing what you have to do. So you nearly have to accept, so there has to be something looked at there where they say, okay, well, if that's the brief highlight show for it covers all 15 games, gives everyone a flavour, right, you can go into work on Monday and talk about the key talking points, but there has to be an opportunity. Or else, could they not, again, they could still do this now on GA, go put the games up the next day. I know they have highlights go up on GA now, put the full games up, put them up, and then allow somebody to analyse them then on the Tuesday or the Wednesday.
Or at least just a 10-minute package from each of them, because, like, you know, this weekend in Navan, Tyrone are playing Meath. Now on the Sunday game on Sunday night, given that there's 15 matches in total, I mean, the RT cannot show more than 60 seconds of that. It won't be with someone who was at the ground, it will be a reporter narrating over the action, and, you know, 5 minutes in, this is what happened, then 3 minutes later they kick this score. If you were able to go onto the GA's website on a Monday night and get 10 minutes of that game, which will give you a real flavour as to how it went, and you could just click on which game you wanted, you could watch them all over the course of a couple of hours. The way on the Sky Go app, for example, you can go in that evening and watch a 3-minute highlights package of every Premier League game that happened that day. I think the GA would get an awful lot of traffic on their website.
Is that not what GA Now is? Is that not what they do at the moment with the highlights from GA Now?
Can you get every game on GA Now?
You get highlights from every game, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
in more detail and more duration than you would see on the Sunday game on a Sunday night.
You would get slightly more detail now. It could take a couple of days for it to come up. It could be into the week before it's there. But the option is that there is more coverage of it there. But again, it's for me, there's an opportunity to provide either more coverage or more analysis around it in terms of giving. Like, there's so much appetite for GA at the moment, particularly during the summer, in terms of people want to know, and you see there's frustrations around our games actually being analysed. Like, when you're watching a game, like I spoke there about, like, listening to the Gooch and James O'Donoghue, you want someone to talk to you about, well, they scored the goal because this is what's happened, rather than...
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I've come down from the Mount Sinai here, and these are my commandments. But you may also now enjoy this game, because I have blessed it as a game which was good. I say this game is a bad game. We will not enjoy this game. It is bad.
Yeah, like there's an entertainment level to that, on for some people, but for me, like that, I enjoy. Like, if I see, particularly if you're not at the ground, you obviously see so much more when you're there. So if someone can explain to you, like, in terms of the tactical setup, or
they don't necessarily have that time on either on a Sunday, but by Sunday night, or certainly by Monday night,
they do. On the live match, they do.
They do, maybe beforehand, but when they're showing a double header, as RT do every Sunday, they pretty much have 10 minutes in between the ad breaks.
What exactly does Fermanagh do to lock down Conor McManus?
They didn't have time for that.
At half-time?
Half-time, what have they got? 5 minutes? I appreciate, both from RT and Sky's point of view, that is not easy. But on a Monday evening,
make an effort.
When you've had 24 hours to go through the footage and show us exactly why something happened, why Fermanagh made it so difficult for Monaghan to break them down, I think it's very possible. And you only have to look at the podcasting in GA terms at the moment. I mean, there's 4 or 5 every week, and I know people, huge GA fans, and they will hoover up every single minute of them, from the stuff we produce ourselves to the stuff everybody else is producing out there. I think a TV programme, a magazine programme on a Monday or a Wednesday, or you could even have 2. You could have one on a Monday and one on a Thursday, a review show, a preview show, and then the GA just sell this off completely separately to a non-RT Sky Sports broadcaster, and you make even more coin out of it. And you're promoting the games in a way that is not being done at the moment, and you're whetting the appetite on a Thursday evening for what's coming up this weekend. There's no preview show anywhere outside of radio.
You'd imagine after this year, and as Jerry said, this is the year where the demand is there, where now there's a huge opportunity to sit down and say, right, and even look at the timelines. Everything game-wise is going to be finished, barring replays, the 2nd of September this year. So it gives them a massive window between September, October, November, December to sit there and say, okay, I don't see them pulling up their existing, in terms of the 5-year deals they've signed, or changing it drastically. There'll be little add-ons, but I don't see them changing it drastically. So they sit there and say, right, do we invest in GA now and say, right, here's an opportunity to do that, and we produce it ourselves? Or do you want to, like, obviously you look at American sports, you look at MLB TV, or you look at what NFL do with NFL Network. There's loads of different options, and you can only assume they're the type of platforms they're looking at and saying, okay, how do we one, provide the best service, and then there's obviously a commercial element. They look at it and say, right, can we sell different assets off, or can we you know, and that's, you'd hope that that's what they're working through at the moment, with a view to when you come back in 2019, there's greater options and greater opportunity there.
Yeah, because like we're very close to the point where there are enough games for counties that you want to watch your county, even though it's not going to be on, and there will be enough cameras at it. It might not be HD 4K quality, but like I'd still want to watch the Kildare match. So you end up listening to
would you? Really?
Well, so the KFM feed went down. It was like one of the mics was working and the other one wasn't. So flick on to KCLR and their feed was working perfectly. But that was literally the only place in the world that you could find out what was happening blow by blow in that game, because there's 10 other matches on at the same time, and it's like, that's a problem. But I would have paid a $5 or a $10 to watch the camera and go and see what was happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, okay, and I'll only get to do it twice this year because they're going to go out in the next round. But you definitely, like, and is that money making? Is that like, is the point of that to make loads and loads of cash, or is it just to show the games? That's the kind of tension that there's always going to be in the organisation. And I think that they're entitled to charge something for it.
Absolutely they are. And if people are willing to pay for it, look, you know pretty quickly after a couple of years, if you're charging a $5 a game and the uptake is minimal, well then you can reassess the situation. But I think the opportunity for everybody to look at their own county is there. I'm like you, I'm constantly trawling through local radio stations in the car on the way home from a game, trying to tune into the game I do want to hear, and I love listening to the local radio coverage. But to be at home and to be able to say have the whatever is on RT on this TV in the corner, and you pull your phone out and you can watch, you know, Cavan Wicklow qualifier this weekend. Might only be one camera. You see a lot of county boards. Laois actually been a very good example over in the last 2 years, and the Dublin County Board as well, where they're showing live games from the Senior Club Football Championships. And there's max 2 cameras at the game, but it's certainly better than nothing. And it's a pretty good camera angle. You'd be perfectly happy to watch that. Yeah,
like they might, again, paying for stuff like the GA obviously get hammered so much in terms of some of the commercial stuff that they do, and they're obviously getting stick for bringing Sky in and people having to pay for games. So they might be reluctant to say, well, if we put up in GA now and start charging, what does that make us? But you put a package together and say, okay, you can, if you just want one game, you can have that €5 option. But put again, an annual pass or a league pass or whatever it might be, but back it up, put archive games on it, put up, okay, you're a Kildare fan, here's a couple of games from the mid-90s, you know, whatever it might be, or Dublin game, like you can watch, do you want to watch the 2011 final, and you have that archive there. And again, it just adds to the content that's available. And if someone says, oh, well, you're charging for this, and you're saying, yeah, but you're charging for a back catalogue of games, you're charging for so much, and they have it there, so it's just a platform it needs to go on. And look, I think it'll be minimal. Like, again, it's one of those things, from a commercial point of view, you're not going to be charging through the nose for it, but if it's a nominal, not a nominal fee, but if it's reasonable and realistic and you feel you're getting enough value for it, people are going to do it, they'll take you up on it. Yeah, and like, there will be enough games. There are so many games on at the moment that you realise that the TV companies, as the deals are currently constituted, don't have the facilities or the bandwidth to show all the games. You can imagine the hundreds of thousands of Irish people across the world that would be paying a €5. Now I know we've only plucked €5 out of the air here, but there'd be hundreds of thousands of people willing to do that on a weekly basis to watch their county play. I'd say the GA would wipe its face very quickly. I think as well, this is the piece, this is the moment where the Sky deal and the antipathy towards it disappears, because everybody realises that we need more than one broadcaster, and you need the opportunity to actually get out there and promote it. So by having this many more games on, all of a sudden it looks like actually we need more than one broadcaster, and there's those ones over there. maybe it should be TV3, maybe that's what some people in the GA are still going to argue, but like, it's inarguable that you can't just have one broadcaster in RT at the moment who are incapable of doing all these games the full justice. Yeah, I don't think having a monopoly on that side in terms of media is of benefit. I think the more companies that can do it, I'm not saying you have 5 or 6 of them to do it, but absolutely you need to spread it out a little bit and make sure you can provide the different types of coverage and different qualities of coverage as well. In fairness, it's been 15 years now since RT last held a monopoly on the GA TV rights, but I think what we're arguing here is it should be more. There should be another broadcaster brought in. You see the job TG Cahir does in club hurling and league hurling and football. I mean, they do an incredible job, and underage, minor and under 21 as well. Ladies football as well, they do a brilliant job. Yeah, so there is so much scope, I think, and eventually it's the tip of the iceberg. The GA will get into this. I just like to see it happen now. Yeah, and maybe this is exactly the year that we needed to do it.